迫る初夏地獄の軍団我らを狙う黒い影世界の平和を守るため Go! Go! Let's go! 輝くマシンライダージャンライダーキッ仮面ライダー仮面ライダーライダーライダー
Got a lot to talk about before we get started on the actual show, so I'll try and keep this concise. The Ultra series is the second oldest of the big Tokusatsu franchises in existence, right after Godzilla, and was created by Godzilla's dad as well, Eiji Tsuburaya, as a means to get scale effects work more into the mainstream, outside of the many movies and events he and his company, Tsuburaya Productions, had created in concert with Toho, which were wildly popular and made Tsuburaya known as the Japanese counterparts and ultimately successor to classic special effects director Ray Harryhausen. An example, in World War II, Tsuburaya was tasked by the military dictatorship to recreate battles in the campaign using miniatures, and the recreation were considered almost indistinguishable from the actual conflicts by the combatants or historians. A job that ended up getting him in trouble, as such was used for the purposes of propaganda, and was classifiable as a war crime by the US occupation. Ironically, that led to the creation of his company due to the blacklisting that was imposed. The Ultra series actually began with a monster, Ultra Q, and was originally meant to be like the Twilight Zone in its story structure, but with science, as opposed to the surreal or supernatural. It eventually developed a homogeny with common characters thrown into a situation of the week, with the eventual defeat of the monster being dealt with via the title Ultra. The Ultra series is considered to be the inspiration for many general formats for a lot of series to come after it, due to the variances in design, aesthetic, and situation the protagonists could get themselves into. Much of the franchise has been imported and is available either on DVD or streamed through Crunchyroll. Hashtag not sponsored. But unlike some other important anniversaries I'm missing doing videos on this year due to bad timing, I did want to do something to honor Ultraman turning 50, even if I'm not really a fan, as it's important to respect the classics. And hey, Tiga's turning 20 in September. But there are three main reasons I decided to go with this series. The first is it was the entry that revitalized Ultraman after 15 years of being off the air. The last prior full series by Tsuburaya, Ultraman 80, ended in 1981. Oh, sure, it had multiple movies, a crossover special with Kamenari Ichigo, and a pair of foreign-produced 13-episode series the company later grandfathered in. But this series is what helped bring it back properly, and it did very well for itself, both in ratings and sales, actively competing with Beefheart Kabuto and pretty much crushed Car Ranger in comparison, even after the latter more than doubled its horrific ratings in its final third. My second reason is I am a fan of its head writer, Chiaki J. Konaka. If you don't know the name, Chiaki Konaka is the writer behind the anime The Big O, Serial Experiments Lane, Bubblegum Crisis Tokyo 2040, several major additions to the Lovecraft mythos, and my favorite and heavy contender for best Digimon series, Digimon Tamers. Yeah, I really wanted to see what he did here at full, mainly because I haven't seen anything by him I've actively disliked. The dude is a dark-as-all-hell writer, most of his stories involving some influence of Lovecraft in them, that just leads themselves naturally into nightmare fuel, serious cataclysmic situations, and existential crises for the characters, which results in significant but natural development in an ongoing story. Unfortunately, you don't see much of that here. Ultraman as a show plays to few of his strengths, and he was only one of 19 contributors to this production, meaning the scripts he wrote only made up a minority of the content. His episodes are still the best ones by a vast margin, mind you, but there's a lot of mediocre content, with others getting weird, or just plain unwatchable to a degree that I expect from Shoji Onomura. It's held back a lot because of the influences and contradictions brought by the show's legion of writers, said staff being Masakazu Migita, Hidenori Miyazawa, Hideyuki Kawakami, Junki Takagami, Nobuhisa Kodama, Minoru Kawasaki, Hirochika Muraishi, Kazuyoshi Nakazaki, Kazuo Tsuburaya, Shinichi Kamizawa, Iota, Keiichi Hasegawa, Kyota Kawasaki, Kazunori Saito, Akio Jisoji, Shunsuke Oishi, and Shozo Uehara, with Iota, Akio Jisoji, and Kyota Kawasaki easily being the worst writers of them. My third reason for deciding to do it is before preparing to review Tiga, I had only seen this show, and most would know why I might have been left with a sour impression. Because of the most evil of importers known as 4Kids. Back when 4Kids Entertainment was just breaking out big into the anime scene with children's-friendly anime dubbing. Translation: horrible bastardized localizations which butchered the underlying content, and done that way to solely make money out of pandering to the lowest common denominator with a media form that was booming in popularity.
Don't tell me it's another one of those dueling protests.
Dude, holograms have rights too.
And usually related to some form of heavy merchandisation so they could rip people off in multiple ways.
Merchandising, merchandising, where the real money from the movie is made.
They bought out a programming block formerly held by Saban and stuffed it full of just whatever they could get their hands on. And during that run, it included this series, and they proceeded to do what they're known for to it.
You're one of a kind, and are easy prey. We capture you, shrink you, then sell you back home. We return to Raven Nebula. Everyone will be trading humans. You'll be bigger than Pokemon.
That's right! Fuck it up for anyone that would have actually cared. If you think I sound a bit more pissed at them than normal, I've been researching the minutiae of their fraud lawsuit and why they still have the rights to the Yu-Gi-Oh franchise. And every time I mentioned I was doing this series on social media, I kept being told, oh, don't use the 4Kids version, it's crap! Guys, I know that. Why would I not know that? Yeah, Tiga is infamous because of that dub, as it's considered one of the worst ones 4Kids ever produced. Not like that's saying much when all of their work is awful. It's notorious for its crass and offensive humor, blatant racism towards the Japanese, and abject sexism amongst many other reasons. All of which contradicts their supposed mission statement of censoring things which are not kid-friendly, which has never once been a justification to anything they have ever done, nor the lengths they have gone to past that, and how bad the resultant productions are in comparison to what they were given to begin with, even if the content already was kid-friendly, just not aimed solely at the Short Bus Brigade demographics to the exclusion of all others. One of the rumors around this travesty was they imported Tiga solely to explain a one-off reference in the Kirby anime, and didn't give a damn about doing right by it, despite the history and popularity of it. This being backed up by its staff when asked, in the essay I read on, they sourced Erica Schroeder, saying that much of it was meant to intentionally be a satire and parody gag dub, homaging the way that the original Ultraman series, imported in the 60s, was similarly gag dubbed. Yeah, about that. It was not, nor was Ultra Q or Ultra 7, which were also imported and dubbed in the 60s. That defense for their conduct is an outright lie. Yeah, I both read Tsuburaya's biography by August Ragone and watched the dub and sub of the original Ultraman series in prep for this. While not flawless, its dub is more akin to the expectations of dubbing back in the 60s, and much work was put in so each story was translated correctly, which had active involvement by Tsuburaya in the process. With the subtitle track on, there is not much variance in the dialogue, most of them being due to different cadences and sentence structure. In other words, it's how a dub is supposed to be. You don't get that with 4Kids, because even if something is originally intended for children or they follow the original story, they still dumb it down immensely and find ways to be outright disrespectful to the content. You see this in every series they ever imported. This is just proof that their work would not even fly in the 60s, let alone today. As even in 2002, it was representative of everything that was and would come to be expected of and wrong with them. The difference was, it wasn't done over time, but shoved together all at once into one bastardization of less than half of Tiga's actual content. It's a microcosm of why so many people despise 4Kids and 4K media. I have several critiques of Tiga, but no matter how bad any episode is here, no matter how annoyed I get at certain events, they are all, in their entirety, better than what came from 4Kids' redubs of the series. I should also note that I'm using the release of the series done by Midnight Crew subs, who only lightly edited the series from the original Funimation subtitling of it. Meaning most of it is Funimation's translation, and it is bad. There are a lot of mistranslations and horribly scripted dialogue present, which can render entire episodes incoherent. Some recurring errors being the Spark Lens being dubbed the Spark Lance, several of the vehicle names changed to still reflect the 4Kids dubs of the series, and those are often mislabeled, and the Terrestrial Peace Coalition having its name augmented into the Peace for Earth Coalition, just to name a few. But there's also frequent misspellings, not typos, intentional misspelled statements as they repeat themselves for multiple consecutive episodes, and entire scripts not matching up at all to what's actually being said, or qualify as a reordering of the dialogue to be more reflective of our language structure. They're out of place and contextually inappropriate localizations. Which should not be things, as I reiterate, that should be coming from professionals. Though to my research, they only put out the show because, well, they had to. They needed to make back their initial investment that 4Kids shafted them on when they abandoned it. Thus, they didn't care to do a quality job on it. And according to sources from Tsuburaya Productions this time, Funimation even went directly against material they were sent for it, and abandoned the license before it even expired. Their DVD sets have been out of print for well over a decade, and they're really not worth the money. Yeah, this series seems kind of cursed in the West, and if Crunchyroll ever picks it up, it needs a retranslation badly. Hashtag not sponsored. And normally I wouldn't even use it, as I do not use localizations for my Tokusatsu reviews if I have another option, as they remove cultural context which can completely alter how a series reads to the audience, and actively avoid selecting series for review that have suffered 1-1 without a better translation anywhere in sight. So, expect me to bitch about the translation every now and then. Still, I decided to go forward on this mainly as I've been meaning to do an entry in the Ultra series for years, but just kept pushing it off. And I do apologize for that, as that was not my intention at all. I just never really prioritized it over other things I wanted to talk about. Thus, please don't expect another Ultra series review anytime in the near future, as there's other things I'd like to spotlight, like maybe finally doing a Metal Hero series or the Toei Spider-Man show. Or Power Rangers RPM. So let's get started with the series in the next video.